I hope you guys are all proud of me because I actually sat through the Alberta NDP's recent debate in Calgary, and boy, was this a sinker. It was just boring. All of the candidates, pretty much all the candidates, I guess, just said absolutely nothing. It's kind of funny because when you actually watch UCP debates, some of them can be a little bit boring, but it's usually because they're being like really technical and policy heavy and arguing about like farm bills that really only affect certain parts of the province, and that can go on for a while. But this one, it was just like people sitting around agreeing with each other and just saying, well, the United Conservative Party and Daniel Smith are very bad. A, and that would kind of be it. And the person would then say, yes, I agree with you. And I talked to a nurse, and that nurse said that the government sucks. And it was just full of a lot of things that were not true. I think at one point, one of the candidates claimed that we had the most underfunded school and healthcare system in the country, even though we spend the most per capita on those services in the province of Alberta, like over top of any other province in this country. We spend far and away the most on those type of public services. I agree, they're not very well managed. That's not exactly a UCP problem. That's just an Alberta government problem because the problems got worse when the NDP started trying to deal with it. But this is why the UCP is really out fundraising the NDP, and some of this could be a consequence of campaigns in the NDP leadership sucking up a lot of campaign donations that would usually go to the party, but the party usually gets a cut of those donations, so they should be benefiting from all this fighting going on, but not really. So I want to go from the top and just start talking about each of the candidates. I'll eventually get to Naheed Nenshi, who, in my opinion, had a terrible debate. I think he could easily start losing a lot of the people he signed up. Because after Naheed Nenshi got into the race, the former Calgary mayor, memberships for the NDP spiked. So he definitely sold a crazy amount of memberships. Could be, I'm not sure if it was like 50,000, 100,000. I'm not sure what the numbers are. I just know that the party memberships doubled a month and a half after he had joined the race. So I assume a lot of that is him, probably other candidates as well. But he's a big player in this race. But I'll first start off with sort of the also rans. Let's just start off with Jody Calahoo Stonehouse. Edmonton MLA, she jumped in because I don't know why. I don't know why she's here. She's just here for a minister's position. She said absolutely nothing in the debate. She's one of those people who just gets up and like recounts family stories. Like, I remember when I was in Bowness and we were jumping off the rail lines into the Bow River and we were having fun. Okay, okay. Do you have anything to say? If you don't, you can move on, get off the stage. She's not really going to win. She's maybe going to throw her support behind someone else, but she's going to be like every race has one. She's going to be the Leela A here of this NDP leadership race. Funnily enough, I'm running against Leela A here for the Calgary Signal Hill federal nomination. So if you're a member in this riding, you better vote for me. Membership deadline passed, but vote for me number one. But she's not going to do anything. Next, I will talk about Kathleen Ganley. She thought she was going to be the Nenshi of this race, the Calgary NDP MLA, who thinks that she has the special sauce to get things done provincially in terms of being able to win enough Calgary votes to be able to push the NDP over the top in the next provincial election. In my opinion on the 23 provincial election is kind of controversial. I thought the UCP ran, frankly, a terrible race. They didn't win as much as Rachel Notley just failed to win. Rachel Notley's corporate tax hike announcement is probably what won the UCP, the provincial election. I was on a lot of UCP campaigns. I was doing work that nobody else on the campaigns were doing for advertising on social media. I was doing door knocking. I was helping out with a lot of strategy, and it was like pulling teeth trying to get some of these campaigns to do something smart. So the thing is that Gangley's pretending like she is the one person who can win Calgary in this next race when she is the most generic of the NDP MLAs in Calgary and probably one of the least marketable ones. Very boring. I thought Court Ellington or someone like that would have been better. And I'm saying all this is conservative. So even though I don't like the NDP, I hate all their policies, I still like to talk about these things from the perspective of who would be most expedient for that party to nominate. Kathleen Ganley, I think, just does you no favors. She's overtly very progressive. A lot of what she said was platitudinous. Seemed like she kind of leaned into the idea that she was going to be the only Calgary politician running in this race. So she keeps talking about bringing people together and that we need to, just win a couple more ridings in Calgary and we'll be past the finish line, as if she was going to be the only one saying that and that was going to make her unique, but she's not because then she is there. But let's going back to Jody Stonehouse, D performance, shouldn't have been there. Kathleen Ganley, I'd give her a C. She's there. She gives middle class corporate consultant types somebody to vote for. That's a good way of putting it. Okay, now I'm going to move on to Gil McGowan. Now, this is going to be a very strange thing for me to say. I give Gil McGowan on a letter grade scale an A. He actually did well as I think the Alberta Federation of Labor president. He's still somehow the AFL president, despite the fact that he's running for the NDP leadership race. That should really say something about the union relationship with the NDP. But he actually said stuff that was substantive. He actually talked about the weaknesses the NDP have, which was a subtle jab at some of the other candidates for basically being these hopelessly out of touch hyper progressives who only care about what people who have arts bachelor degrees think, and that's pretty much it. He got really good shots in on Sarah Hoffman, talking about oil and gas and pointing out that Hoffman was incapable of talking about oil and gas in a non-negative way. Every time it was brought up, Sarah Hoffman would talk about how, well, we need a climate corps where we hire everyone below the age of 35 to go and do climate action. It was something that somebody in a student union would say, and Hoffman looked horribly callous towards oil and gas jobs and the oil and gas industry, which built this province. So Gil actually hit her pretty hard on that. He hit other candidates hard. I think he even went after Nenshi for the fact that he was like helping the UCP fight unions. I don't even think that's true, but it was a good attack because I think Gil McGowan's full of it. At the same time, he was interesting. He had people stand up at the start and point out that the entire crowd was full of university graduates and there wasn't people who worked in the trades or were small business owners with high school degrees or stuff like that the UCP tends to do really well with. I thought he was good, which is so weird because he's one of the most thin-skinned, nasty people on social media. He even blocked me for pointing out that he's a trade unionist, aka a fascist. But whatever. I give Gil McGowan an A relative to this NDP debate. Now, I want to move on to Sarah Hoffman and Nenshi at the same time, because two of the moments I want to highlight here really include both of them, and I'll give the letter grades after I talk about it a bit. But starting off with Sarah Hoffman, you can tell this entire race is kind of coming down to Hoffman versus Nenshi. Hoffman is the progressive, almost farther left of the candidates between her and Nenshi. She is the NDP orthodox stalwart. She very much appeals to the more female nursing and teacher type base that the NDP has, very much pushing things like rent control, hyper progressive social policies, higher taxes, all this stuff. She is somebody who, if you liked Rachel Notley, you would generally really like Sarah Hoffman, and she's even a little bit more left-wing to try and monopolize that Janice Irwin progressive NDP pro-Hamas type vote. And then you have Nenshi, who is playing the role of the everyman. He is the candidate for you if you just don't like Danielle Smith and the UCP, and you simply want the NDP to win. I hope they don't win. But Nenshi in this debate basically proved that he actually might not be the safest candidate to run if you just want the UCP and Smith gone. He actually could be one of the worst candidates. And it's clips like this that highlight it really well. The man is just kind of a nasty person. He's good and slick when he debates, a little too slick, and I'll get into the rest of his performance, but he has way too many gaffes like this, unable to not demonstrate his contempt for the people that he deals with.
Sure that every Albertan has a successful opportunity in the future.
You know, Jody, you've been sitting opposite these guys, and I have been to question period a grand total of once in my life. And I was watching you and your colleagues and watching these monkeys on the other side. Can we influence them at all from opposition?
From what I've witnessed, Rachel and the team have been there day in, day out.
Okay, and then Jody just starts into an answer that really proves why she shouldn't be there in the first place, just boringly talking about how great the current party leader is, who you're supposed to prove that you can do better than. Doesn't matter. That's why I gave Jody a D. But Nenshi, there's also one of his debate tactics is demonstrated very well in that clip. But Nenshi calling the UCP MLAs monkeys is not a good move. Like, it's always good to rib your opponents, But he is just going down the same line that other NDP politicians have in the past of calling Albertans sewer rats or hillbillies or hicks and this stuff. That ticks people off because the NDP is a horrifyingly elitist party. It's people who have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in the arts. They believe they are more intelligent and sophisticated than UCP voters, and that's why people don't like them. They barely lost in 23, despite the fact that they were running against Danielle Smith, who had had a ton of mud slung on her for over a year and a half by the media, by the NDP, activist groups, whatnot. So, and they were also having to deal with kind of a sluggish economy coming out of COVID, and that they still lost. So I don't see how doubling down on the elitism and the arrogance is going to help Nenshi. And the debate tactic he used there, he used it throughout the entire hour and a half debate. It might have been more like 2 hours. He just asks the other person questions. He runs out the clock. Well, what do you think of that? Well, I'd love to hear what you think. And then we can get back to me. At one point, he almost revealed his own tactic when he was talking to Ganley and she was answering something. And he says, oh, well, yeah, like, I want to hear what you have to say, and then I'll move on to what I was going to talk about in terms of reforming the healthcare system. She gives like an answer where she even admits that she doesn't exactly know what the issue is with the healthcare system. And then when it comes back to him, he's like, oh, wow, I only have 30 seconds left. And then he starts for 15 seconds just saying, well, it was really great that you broached that issue, and I like hearing people's perspectives. And then you just talked about how, well, in the past, I've advocated for some reforms to the way we engage with our nurses and the way that we are are administering healthcare. And he said literally nothing, and then he ran out the clock and it moved on. The man said nothing in the entire debate. He never took a solid position on any issue. He never took a solid position on what reforms that he wants would look like. He never even made he never even built an idea of what he'd like the party to look like. Not even saying, I think he said at one point, we need to be a bigger tent party. But this is why I give Gil McGowan an A. At least Gil McGowan actually said that we need to be more working class and we need to be less elitist and stop only targeting women with bachelor degrees and master degrees. So I'm going to hold off saying what I think of Nenshi's performance just because I want to get to this exchange he had with Sarah Hoffman, because it is a slugging match between them, and then I'll rate both of them because I thought this was a very telling interaction between the two on the attitudes and the positions that both of them are taking in this race.
I've mentioned housing is one of the biggest crises here in Calgary, and there were 170 affordable housing homes in Midfield Park, and I need to know from you, Naheed, why you closed that park, why you evicted those folks. I've talked to many of them, and they are still paying their mortgages, and many of them experienced homelessness.
Sure. Happy to answer that, off topic, but happy to answer it. I don't know if you ever went there. I don't know if you ever saw those so-called affordable homes. I'm sure you didn't, but the decision was a hard one. It was an incredible...
Immediately dismissive, just immediately talking down to her and immediately always presenting himself as the only person worth listening to in the room.
Incredibly difficult one, but we ensured that every single tenant who was there had the opportunity to move into a Calgary housing home with priority. And every single one of them who needed to be rehoused in a better place got that better place.
Well, I talked to Callan, and Callan had an affordable home. He bought his trailer for $55,000. He was a newlywed. They were excited to start their family. It was a great place for them to live, and they had a great time there. And he ended up having to move in with his in-laws and leaving Calgary. He took that $55,000 mortgage with him. Thanks for the $10,000, but he's still paying off that mortgage today, 6 years later. He and his family did not think that that was a good move. They were all over the news. They were all begging to have their homes preserved. They were originally promised by you and council that they would be moved to another area, but that never came through. So many people experienced homelessness, and I did not expect somebody who identifies as an NDP mayor.
Do you actually have a single example of someone who experienced homelessness, or are you fear-mongering here, Sarah?
Well, I'm telling you, he had to move in with his in-laws and live in their basement, so they didn't have a home.
So you don't have...
I love this moment where he's basically saying, hey, Sarah, can you name 10 homeless people for me right now? I bet my dad's tougher than your dad, Sarah. He always uses these really weaselly debate tactics where he's like, name 10 homeless people on the spot right now, as if anyone can do that. Obviously, people don't have a Rolodex of names of people that apply to a specific situation. And the funny thing is, both of them are wrong about this situation. Both of them don't know what they're talking about in terms of good policies to solve the issue with housing. Both these people are in favor of mass immigration. They do not want to lower taxes and make it easier to build homes. They don't care about any of that. They're in favor of things like blanket rezoning because it's a band-aid solution to just overall bad regulations and bad tax systems and rates in the province. And so Nenshi is just basically belittling her and pretending that all of her concerns with these temporary homes that people purchase and then they were moved out of and then still paying the mortgages for, that she's wrong because she can't name enough people to satisfy my requirements. He's someone who acts hopelessly above you. He is so far above you that you have to prove yourself to him before he will engage with you honestly.
Have any actual examples?
Well,
because Sarah,
there are
this
many
is hard.
examples in the news.
Policy,
I've read the
as
stories
you know,
too, and I've
you were the
talked to them.
Minister
Did
of
you
Health.
call them and did you talk to them? Because I know
I
where they
sat
ended
in their
up
living room, Sarah,
when
and
they
as
had
the
one.
Minister of Health, Sarah.
That's a good line from Sarah Hoffman.
You should know that sometimes the easy answers are not the easy answers. Sometimes you got to sit with people and find solutions for each individual
And tear
rather
down
than
their
relying
homes. Like
only on
they're
your ideology.
literally
both.
still
Thank you
grieving
both.
about this process.
And he says nothing. When challenged, he merely again runs out the clock by saying that, well, we need individual solutions to these problems. He can't even prove he helped actually fix that solution because obviously the people are still suffering from him basically selling them temporary housing outside, like a little bit outside Calgary in trailer units, and then taking them away and then saying, well, I actually sat down with them, and then just merely bulldozing her for the rest of the time. Like I had my friend Raheem Muhammad, he posted a thread on Twitter that was interesting where he was talking about what his wife's reaction to this debate, because of course he's a conservative journalist, so then both of them were watching the debate to see what they thought, and she thought his entire attitude and the way he talks to other people, especially women, is a massive turnoff. And that's terrible when you're in a party that is disproportionately female and that you come across like somebody who belittles women. That's not going to do well. Again, if he's going to be the guy who you are going to vote for because simply he can beat Smith and the UCP, and then he starts acting like this, he's proving that actually up against Smith, he'll actually make Smith seem like a much more sympathetic figure. When I say seem like, not because Smith is not sympathetic, but the whole point is that he is a awful optical contrast between someone like Danielle Smith, who can actually come off like a normal person. Nenshi is so detached and elitist. He comes across as somebody who is constantly making you prove yourself to him and that he never has to prove himself to you. That is what the debate felt like, because he said nothing and he acted like everyone is here to challenge me and they had to prove themselves smart enough for me to even deign to really debate them on an issue. So I would give Hoffman a B in this debate. She came off very just like kind of an orthodox NDPer. She did well at that. I don't think she really, shook the pillars of heaven in this debate and made it so that she was like the clear one to come and beat Nenshi. But Nenshi, I think, just lost momentum in this debate. I would give him a D, just like Jody. Nenshi just made himself come off as unpleasant. He was very nasty to the UCP. That monkey comment was just an unforced error. Him debating and belittling multiple different people and then actually being bested by Gil McGowan just demonstrated that he's a lot of flair, he's a lot of polish, but on the actual issues, I think he's going to turn off tons of middle-class voters. And again, I want all these people to lose. I want somehow no candidate to win this leadership race, but I am less freaked out about the possibility of Nenshi being able to lead the NDP into a victory simply off of brand recognition in Calgary. I think that in a lot of ways, I only think he could become the mayor of Calgary again, simply because I think he's become an old politician. You can even tell by the crowds he draws in, a lot of older people who are just nostalgic for something from the 2010s, early 2010s, that it felt better back then, so we like Nenshi. But if Nenshi proves that now he is an NDP ideologue, I think a lot of the shine of him as the nonpartisan mayor completely goes away. It's like whenever people talk about, well, Oprah could run for president of the United States and do really well. Yes, she has good approval ratings because she's not in politics. If she announced, all of the negatives would come falling out of her closet and she would become a very despised person. Dr. Oz proved this in Pennsylvania. Very well-liked person. As soon as he starts running in Pennsylvania, all the negatives on Dr. Oz start coming out of the woodwork. Same thing with Nenshi. I think that this leadership, even if he wins it, is going to be far closer than a lot of people predict, because people think everyone's going to shift to Nenshi because they desperately want to beat the NDP. But as Nenshi is proving he can't put away these other also-ran NDP candidates or Sarah Hoffman, he's going to demonstrate that he can't probably beat Danielle Smith either. I hope he doesn't. I hope they all fail. But anyways, that should be it for me. So Sarah Hoffman B, Nenshi D, Jody, Calahoo, Stonehouse D, Gil McGowan A, and then I think Kathleen Ganley C. So there's my report card for this debate. Donate to the legal fund for the National Telegraph in the donation link in the description of this video. Oh, why am I becoming so rambly? But we have this billionaire developer suing us for no reason. He has no evidence we defamed him. So he is drawing this thing out for more than 2 years. So if you want to help us reduce the cost of our legal burdens, please donate to the legal fund. It would really help us out. And that should be it for me today, guys. I might be back later with a live stream tonight. Have a good one.